Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a closer look, a deep dive really, into the Yamaguchi-gumi, Japan's biggest Yakuza organization.
Right. It's a fascinating, complex subject.
We've pulled together quite a few articles, different reports, and the idea is to really get to the heart of this group. Where they came from, what they do, what's happening now.
It's sort of a concentrated look. It's a huge topic, so focusing is key.
Exactly. Think of it as your essential guide to a major player in global organized crime, one that's often, well, hidden from view.
And the history alone is remarkable. It starts back in 1915 in Kobe.
1915, wow.
Yeah, founded by Hirokichi Yamaguchi. And it wasn't, initially this big crime syndicate. It started more like a labor union.
A labor union for dock workers.
Dock workers in Kobe, yeah. Pre-World War II, so quite different beginnings.
That's a stark contrast to what they became. And they have that symbol, the Yamabishi.
The Yamabishi, that diamond-shaped badge. It's iconic. Carries a lot of history with it.
Okay, let's talk scale then.
Yeah.
Because the sources call them one of the largest criminal organizations globally. That's significant.
It really is. Their headquarters are still in Kobe, but their reach, it's across Japan. Nagoya, Tokyo are big areas.
And even outside Japan?
Oh, yeah. The sources mention Hawaii, for instance, an international presence.
And the numbers. How many members are we talking about?
The figures from late 2024 suggest around 3,300 active members.
Okay.
Plus another 3,600 quasi-members, sort of affiliates. So, yeah, a substantial force.
That kind of scale needs structure, I imagine.
Absolutely. And that structure really developed over time. A key figure was the third boss, Kazuo Taoka.
Right, Taoka. What did he introduce?
Well, he formalized the hierarchy. You get the Kumichu, the overall boss, then Wakagashira, the underboss, number 2, basically.
Okay.
And even Wakagashira Hosa, deputy underbosses. It created a clear chain of command, which was crucial for managing their expansion.
And that expansionist drive seems to continue, right, with the current Kumichu, Shinobu Tsukasa.
Yes, Tsukasa has been pretty open about pushing into new territories, especially making inroads into Tokyo, which wasn't traditionally their main turf.
So that structure supports this ambition,
Right.
And the overseas operations you mentioned just underline their global footprint.
Exactly. It's a sophisticated operation.
Which brings us to their activities. It's not just minor stuff, is it?
No, not at all. The list in our sources is extensive. You've got arms trafficking, assassinations, bid rigging, blackmail.
Contract killing, drug trafficking, extortion, fraud. It goes on.
Human trafficking, illegal gambling, loan sharking, match fixing, money laundering, murder, prostitution, racketeering.
And even getting into things like securities fraud and corporate extortion.
The Tsukaya.
Right, Sakai.
Yeah.
That's where they disrupt shareholder meetings, often by threatening to reveal scandals, unless they get paid off.
Yeah.
It shows a level of integration into the corporate world almost.
And infiltration of legitimate businesses, too.
Definitely. Plus real estate schemes, construction kickbacks, stock market manipulation. This isn't just street crime. It paints a picture of immense wealth, doesn't it? Billions generated annually.
That's what the report suggests. One of the wealthiest gangster groups globally. That money funds everything else, obviously.
Let's rewind a bit to the history. We mentioned the founder, Hirokichi Yamaguchi, and his son, Noboru, was the second leader.
Yes, early days. But Kazuo Taoka, the third Kumichu from 46 to 81, he seems pivotal.
How did he manage that transformation from a local group to this huge national, even international force?
Well, a key strategy was encouraging his people to start legitimate businesses.
Really? Alongside the crime?
Yeah, and he allowed them to have their own families or subgroups. It fostered loyalty, but also decentralized growth in a way. Combined with that formal structure we talked about, it just enabled massive expansion.
But that expansion structure didn't always mean stability, did it? What about the Yamaichi War?
Ah, right. That followed the selection of the fourth Kumichu, Masahisa Takanaka, in 1984.
What happened there?
Well, another contender for the top spot, Hiroshi Yamamoto, didn't accept the decision. He broke away, took a lot of members with him, and formed the Ichiwakai.
And that led to war.
A very bloody one. Lots of violence, assassinations on both sides. Takanaka himself was assassinated in 85.
So a period of major internal conflict.
Definitely. Even after Takanaka, there were brief leadership periods under Nakanishi and Watanabe that were marked by this instability.
Then Yoshinori Watanabe becomes the fifth Kumichu in 89. Did things calm down then?
He did manage to bring the Yamaichi War to an end, yes, But sources suggest his own underboss, his Wakagashira Masaru Takumi, held a huge amount of power, maybe even more influence than Watanabe himself.
Interesting. So power dynamics were still complex.
Very. And then Takumi himself was assassinated in 1997. That created another power vacuum, weakened things again, probably, leading up to Shinobu Tsukasa taking over as the 6th Kumichu in 2005.
And Tsukasa seems to have reignited that expansionist policy.
Yes, definitely. A key move was absorbing the Kokusui Kai group,
Why was that significant?
because it gave the Yamaguchi-gumi a solid foothold in Tokyo. Major strategic gain.
And Tsukasa himself faced legal issues.
He was imprisoned for a while on firearms charges. His release was a big event, watched closely for signs of what the group would do next. He also appointed Kiyoshi Takayama as his Wakagashira, signaling his direction.
The timeline throws up some really stark events, like the assassination of the mayor of Nagasaki in 2007.
Yeah, Icho Ito, killed by a senior member of an affiliated gang.
And reportedly over a dispute about a construction site. Seems disproportionate.
It does. The initial sentence was death, though later commuted to life imprisonment. But it shows the potential for extreme violence, even over relatively minor issues, seemingly.
But then, on the complete other side of the coin, you have these stories of their relief efforts. After the Kobe earthquake in '95, the Chuku tsunami in 2011.
Right. It's a striking contrast. Reports say they were very quick, very organized in distributing food, water, supplies, even opening up their offices for shelter.
Sometimes faster than the official response, apparently.
That's often noted, yeah. It creates this very complex image. Criminal organization, but also providing community aid in a crisis.
Why do you think they do that? PR. Genuine concern. Influence.
Probably a mix of things. Some analysts point to it as a way to build goodwill, maybe gain a level of social acceptance or legitimacy in their areas, or perhaps just exerting influence. It's ambiguous.
And then there was a newsletter in 2013, an internal magazine.
Yeah, an 8-page newsletter just for full members. It sounds almost corporate, doesn't it?
It really does. What was in it?
Things like opinions from the leadership, articles on group traditions, apparently even like fishing columns.
Fishing columns.
And editorials by the boss, Kenichi Shinoda, that's Tsukasa's real name. The idea seemed to be about boosting morale, improving communication, reinforcing that group identity.
Interesting way to manage such a large, dispersed group.
It shows that even for the Yakuza, internal comms and culture matter.
Now, despite all this structure and history, we also see reports of declining membership since the 90s.
Yes, that's a clear trend across the Yakuza world, and the Yamaguchi-gumi isn't immune. The numbers have dropped quite significantly over the years.
Any specific figures for them?
Yeah, the sources give some snapshots, like 34,900 members in 2012, down to 28,000 in 2013, then 23,400 by the end of 2014. A steady decline.
What's driving that, do you think?
It's likely several things. Tougher anti-Yakuza laws, definitely. More police pressure. But also maybe changing social attitudes. Less appeal for younger generations. Perhaps the economic benefits aren't what they used to be.
And that decline didn't stop internal divisions either. The 2015 split sounds like a really big one.
Oh, huge. It was the first major split in decades. Several powerful factions, the Yamakin-gumi, Takumi-gumi, Kyoyukai, broke off.
Why did they leave?
Reports suggest dissatisfaction with Tsukasa's leadership, particularly his focus on promoting people from his own original faction, the Kodokai, and perhaps financial disputes too, like increased fees being demanded from member groups.
And they formed a rival group.
Exactly. The Kobe Yamaguchi-gumi set up a direct rivalry based in Kobe too, which obviously created a lot of tension and potential for conflict right on their doorstep. Before the split, the main group had about 72 factions, so losing key ones was a major blow.
Which brings us right up to date, to April 2025. This news about the Yamaguchi-gumi wanting to end the conflict with the Kobe group and others.
Yes, that's the recent development. They've stated an intention to basically call a truce.
Why now?
Well, the thinking is it's likely tied to their legal designation. Both groups were labeled designated specified conflict-related organized crime groups.
Yeah, mates.
It comes with heavy restrictions, limits on members gathering, entering offices, things like that. Very disruptive. So ending the conflict could be a strategic move to try and get that designation lifted.
Makes sense. And there were leadership changes around the same time.
Right. Kiyoshi Takayama, the long-serving Wakagashira, stepped down from that role. He's now a Sujunyaku, an advisor.
Okay. And who replaced him?
Taraki Takuchi is the new Wakagashira. So potentially a shift in direction or approach accompanying this move towards de-escalation.
We should also touch on the international pressure. The U.S. sanctions back in 2012.
Good point. The U.S. Treasury froze assets of the organization and its top two leaders, Tsukasa and Takayama. The Obama administration officially designated them as a significant transnational criminal organization.
So definitely on the radar globally.
Absolutely. Their activities were seen as having impacts far beyond Japan. Drugs, arms, money laundering, these things cross borders.
And just briefly, their presence in popular culture, they seem to pop up quite a bit.
They do. Films, comics like Marvel stuff, video games like Hitman.
Usually as the bad guys, I assume.
Pretty much always the antagonists, yeah. Powerful, shadowy figures. It definitely shapes the public perception, even if it's fictionalized.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've seen this incredible arc from a dock workers union over a century ago to this global criminal enterprise.
Huge scale, complex structure, incredibly diverse, often brutal criminal activities.
But also internal wars, major splits, periods of instability.
And the strange duality with things like the disaster relief efforts.
Right. And now, this recent move, seemingly trying to ease restrictions by ending conflict, alongside leadership shuffles,
Yeah.
it's constantly evolving.
It really is. Decades of history, huge influence, yet also facing decline and internal strife.
So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. How do you reconcile these contradictions? The deep criminality, the violence, alongside occasional community aid. The sheer endurance of such an organization within a modern society like Japan and its global recognition.
What does that duality tell us about organized crime itself, and maybe how it weaves itself into the fabric of society, even as society tries to stamp it out? It's something complex to think about.